few myths and legends that surround dogs and cats. So the first one is dogs see in black and white. This is a common one with a lot of animals. People think that animals see in black and white. And of course, it's false, as you'd expect. There'd be no reason at all why a dog would want to see in black and white. But let's have a look. This is called an Ishihara test. And if you can't see a dog in that one, that means that you've got some problems with colour sight. Now, of course, you can't do this with a dog. You can't say, can you see the dog in there? So what we do is get three plates, and make one of them a different colour, and reward the dog when he identifies the fact that it's a different colour. Now, if those two colours that we have are very similar, or the dog sees them in the same way, then you're going to find that the dog won't see that there's a difference and won't look for the reward. So that's how we can tell how dogs see. And if you have a look here, they pretty well see the world in either yellows or blues. And if it's not a yellow or a blue, it's probably going to be looking fairly grey. There's a big difference here in how vivid these colours are. The receptors at the back of the eye are called cones that see colour. Now, humans have got 3 different kinds of cones, and dogs have only got 2, and that's why they can only see a certain amount, and certainly not as vivid as us. Interestingly, here, if you were to look at this, if you had a red or a yellow toy and you threw it onto the back lawn, which is green, the dog's going to see all that as exactly the same colour. So not unreasonably, a dog will often not actually see a toy that's red, much more likely to see it if it's blue. So a dog has a dry nose if it's unwell. Is that true or false? That's false. We see plenty of dogs that are unwell, that have a nice wet nose, cold wet nose, and plenty of dogs that are perfectly well whose nose is dry. The liquid that goes onto the nose to make it wet comes from the eye, and it's basically tears and comes down this duct called the nasolacrimal duct. There's also some component of some glands in here as well that keep that nose wet. Cats coughing up hairballs is normal. Is that true or false? False, mostly. Most of the time when cats are coughing up hairballs on an ongoing basis, daily, even weekly on an ongoing basis, they've got a gut problem. You will have some long-haired cats at the change of the season, and they'll vomit up some hairballs just every now and again, and you wouldn't consider that pathological or a problem. And some of the problems that can cause cats to be vomiting up hairballs. So this is the stomach. Food comes in here, goes out straight out through what's called the pylorus and out into the small intestine. When you've got what's called a stenosis, which is a narrowing of the pylorus, the hair and the food will come down here, and only very small particles are able to get out, which means that often this hair will sort of clump together, and of course that then comes straight out the tummy, out the mouth. Chocolate is deadly for dogs. This is a really common one. Comes up every Easter. True, but not a real problem. It is true if a dog eats enough chocolate that it can have some signs caused by a chemical called theobromine. Now, theobromine causes very similar to signs to what you and I might have if we drank too much coffee. The amount, though, that a dog has to eat of, say, milk chocolate, that Dachshund that was in the previous picture would probably have to eat maybe 2 or 3 of those bars for it to be a real problem. I can tell you amongst the vets at Canoma's Pet Hospital, we've got something like 75 years worth of experience, and not one of us has seen a chocolate poisoning in a dog. So probably something to be aware of. Don't encourage your dog to be eating too much chocolate, but not anything to really sort of show its head very much. A purring cat is always happy. Well, that's true, but it's not the full story. Cats purr when they're happy. Trouble is, purring in a cat is very similar to humans when they smile. So we smile when we're happy, but you can also smile when you're anxious. A smile isn't always a sign of happiness. Cats will purr when they're anxious. Cats will purr when they're in pain, believe it or not. And cats even purr when they're having kittens. The interesting thing about a cat's purr is that it's at about 50 hertz, which is 50 cycles a second. Now, what we do know about things like healing bones, bony fractures, is that if you put sound through them at somewhere between 50 and 100 hertz, they heal much, much faster. And it's been well known for many years that cats, when they have a fractured leg, will heal much better than dogs. I'd much rather fix a cat's broken leg than a dog's broken leg. And they've drawn those two things together, and there is a thought that maybe the purring actually helps tissue to heal. Hasn't been proven yet, but it's a nice thought. Dogs eat grass to make themselves sick. Is that true or false? Again, it's true and false. Many dogs with that same condition that we were talking about with hairballs in cats, many dogs have pyloric stenosis, and in those cases they will actually eat grass and they will make themselves sick. Dogs with pyloric stenosis chronically feel nauseous on an ongoing basis because food can't get out. And once food hits the bottom here, it wants to get out, and that, of course, leads to vomiting and grass eating. But it's not always the case. I once asked a nutritionist, a veterinary nutritionist, why dogs eat grass, and he said because they like it. Now, this is the grass that I notice my dogs like the most of all. It's called prairie grass. It's a quite light colour green, very broad leaves, and it's got a big seed head on it. So often you'll find that dogs will eat that, and when they're eating it, they're eating it because they just like the taste of it. 1 year to a dog is like 7 years to us. And that's a really common, that's firmly held right across the community, and that's false. The truth is that we can't actually match up the age. So we know that smaller dogs will live to a greater age, whereas larger dogs, if you have say a 10-year-old, so we've got a 10-year-old Great Dane, that's very old. That's 78. It's very rare to see a Rottweiler or a Great Dane get past 12, but it's very common for smaller dogs. So here, if we've got some of these smaller breeds, Maltese, those sorts of breeds, we would normally expect them to sort of make it to 14 or 15. But you can also see not only is there variation across the sizes, but there's variation across the years. So in that first year of life, it's to a small dog, it's worth 15. It's not worth 7. And so on and so forth down the scale. Actually, the other interesting thing here you'll notice is that smaller dogs mature faster than larger dogs. So that first year really races by for them.